There's this really deep, really human need that I think we all have, and that's the need to belong, right? It's that search for a place where you're just seen, where you're accepted for exactly who you are. Well, today we're going to get into a pretty incredible story about that very search. The untold story of how gay people fought to find their home inside one of the most famous fellowships on Earth, Alcoholics Anonymous.
And this quote right here, from a man named Barry L., an early gay member of AA, this gets to the absolute heart of it all. He wasn't running from something, he was running to something. He was just trying to get in somewhere. And that one simple idea, that powerful longing, it really sets the stage for this whole amazing journey.
So to really get a feel for this search, we have to kind of step back in time. We're talking mid-20th century, a time when being gay and being an alcoholic meant you were facing this profound and frankly dangerous double isolation.
Just try to imagine this for a second. It's a world where just getting together with people like you is literally against the law. Any books, any plays that showed homosexuality as anything but some kind of sickness were banned. So in this climate of total fear, the only place you could find any kind of community was often the one place that was fueling the problem, the gay bar.
So you've got this crazy contradiction, right? On one hand, these bars were dangerous. You were constantly at risk of police raids, getting arrested, even getting assaulted just for walking in the door. But on the other hand, once you were inside, you felt it, that connection, that feeling of, okay, I belong here. It was both a sanctuary and a trap, all at the same time.
But something new was starting to happen. Into this pretty hostile world comes this young, scrappy organization called Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was built on this really simple but totally radical promise of inclusion. And this is it. This is the whole shebang, the third tradition. It's so simple, it's kind of breathtaking. The only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. That's it. No asterisks, no fine print, not if you look a certain way or if you love a certain type of person, just one thing. And this tradition would become the absolute bedrock for the fight that was to come. But here's the thing about a promise, right? It's just words until it gets tested. And oh boy, did it get tested. One afternoon in a New York clubhouse, the door swings open and in walks someone who is about to challenge every single prejudice of the time.
So try to picture this. The group is all white, and he's black. He's got long blonde hair, he's wearing makeup, and then he just lays it all out there. Says he just got out of prison, that he's a dope fiend, that's the term they used, and an alcoholic. And then he just says, I need help desperately. So, what do?
Well, the members kind of debated, and then they called up AA's co-founder, Bill Wilson. And his response? It set the course for the entire future of AA. He pointed right back to that third tradition and said the only question they could ask was if he needed help. And then he said, it is up to us now to help him. Boom. With that, the door was officially meant to be open to everyone.
But an open door in theory is one thing. To really get why this was still such a massive struggle, we have to understand the absolutely brutal world these folks were living in, where both alcoholism and homosexuality were seen as these moral failures that had to be cured.
And when you look at this, it's just chilling. The so-called cures for alcoholism on the left, strychnine, really? And on the right, the cures for homosexuality, lobotomies, electric shock. Society basically saw both as a sickness of the character, something that had to be beaten out of you with punishment and pain.
And believe it or not, it actually gets even darker. Both groups ended up in the crosshairs of the eugenics movement. This was this awful pseudoscience that labeled them degenerates, a threat to the gene pool. And in the early 20th century, there were actual laws in the US that allowed for the forced sterilization of alcoholics and so-called sexual perverts. This wasn't just social stigma. This was persecution baked into law.
So, even with that amazing precedent from Bill Wilson, the battle inside AA was far, far from over. That third tradition, it was about to be put on trial for decades, not by one person at the door, but by a whole community trying to get in. And just look at this timeline. It shows you what a slog this was. We're talking 16 years from the very first request just to get a little pamphlet approved. And get this, in 1984, the National Conference actually voted to drop the whole project. This was a long, hard fight. And we're not talking about some polite academic debate here. This was raw, it was ugly. The same prejudice that was out in the world was right there in those AA meeting rooms. One guy actually stood up at the national conference and asked this question, framing it like it was some kind of invasion. But then, the turning point came from the most unexpected person. A tiny woman from up north literally ran to the mic, pulled it down so she could reach it, and fired back with this. She reminded every single person in that room that in the eyes of the rest of the world, they were all deviants. She brought it right back to what they all had in common, and that moment helped break the whole logjam.
So, after decades of fighting from inside, of creating their own spaces, that original promise of the third tradition finally started to feel real.
And you know, while all the bigwigs were debating at the conference, the gay members on the ground, they weren't just sitting around waiting. They took things into their own hands. They started their own meetings, their own little safe harbors. They'd give them names like Live and Let Live, an AA slogan that was like a secret handshake, signaling to other gay alcoholics, hey, this is a place you can be yourself.
Okay, so the philosophical key that unlocks this whole thing, it's right here at the very beginning of AA. Bill Wilson is at rock bottom. He thinks he can't get sober because he can't buy into a traditional God. And his friend says this to him, why don't you choose your own conception of God? I mean, that's it. That's the ultimate statement of spiritual freedom.
And this is the brilliant leap that Barry L. made. He put 2 and 2 together. If AA at its very core says you get to decide your own relationship with a higher power, then it has absolutely no business telling you who you're allowed to love. If my God is my business, then my sexuality is my business too. It's the perfect, logical conclusion of the third tradition. Which brings us right back to the beginning. Back to Barry, that little kid who wasn't running away, but was just trying to get in somewhere. After all those decades of searching and fighting and paving the way for so many others, did he finally find it? Did he find his home?
Yeah, he did. In the end, that search to belong, it wasn't about a building or a specific place. It was about finding a community. It was about a journey that led him into a room full of people, where, at long last, he could look around and just say, I'm home.